seemed to protect himself pretty well there.
He caught that on the rise. Gave him a big surprise.
Yeah. No backing off.
So now, when he tosses, I see he doesn't brace himself with the left hand on the wheel. He just pretty much balances himself.
Yeah, majority of these players here will probably serve with a free hand up and use as much trunk rotation as they can. And there's a good hold for Stefan to start this opening game. From a love 30 deficit, he reels off 4 straight points to take the game, and a good start for him on the momentum side.
Beautiful kick serve.
Yeah, like I said, we'll talk a little bit about the return of serve advantages that some of these players will be able to impose upon the server. It's just kind of a nature of wheelchair tennis where that returner is in motion, moving. If he can get that first good strike, they oftentimes take advantage of the point early on. But at the highest level here in the men's game, I think that's starting to become a little bit less of a factor. I mean, the guys are developing bigger serves, able to protect themselves a little bit better. You saw that in the opening game with Olsen right there. Now Gustavo Fernandez to serve first. Probably not the way Gustavo would have liked to started his first service game, but he'll shrug that off pretty quickly. Get right back to work. Yeah, I don't know that there's anybody on the tour that works harder than Gustavo. Just has an incredible work ethic. I mean, you see physically, as we talked about a little bit earlier, but all aspects of the game. You know, he leaves no stone unturned, and that is pretty much what has elevated him to the top of the game. There's a great example of that. Olsen slice really got in deep and penetrated. You will see a lot of that today from the Swede.
Tight, deep return.
Like that urban camouflage that Stefan's got going there today. Good look for him. The typical hat backwards for Gustavo Fernandez. Likes to play that way. Kind of a signature look for him. Early struggles on the Fernandez serve.
Maybe a little nervous, got to get the tension out.
Yeah, you know, don't know if in the stadium here the wind is possibly swirling a little bit. Hard to get a gauge from early. Of course, the opening games, players are oftentimes just trying to get a feel for things, you know. It's early.
He's cinched in that chair pretty tight, isn't he?
Yeah, one of the unique things about Gustavo is, unlike many of the other players, he doesn't have the function in the lower extremities like many of the other players do at this level. He is all about balancing, strapping, and creating the ability to hold himself in that chair and just utilize as much of that massive upper body as he can. There's the let cord winner for a game by Olsen, the obligatory apology, but he'll take it and move on to a 2-love lead here in the first couple of games of this opening set of our opening match here that we'll be bringing you live on center court. 3 matches today and 3 matches for the remainder of the week till we get up to the finals next Tuesday. We'll be bringing you both singles and doubles, which I think, as you mentioned, is really an exciting thing for our viewers to be able to see the best in the world compete in both singles and doubles. Great serve by Olsen, kind of sets things up from the start, and Fernandez still really not finding his game yet. And Olsen will take advantage of that to every extent he can. Try to pad this lead here, knowing that Gustavo is a true warrior. Nothing will be free here today.
He fought that high backhand off and hit a winner down the line. I think his high backhand's one of his strongest shots don't you think?
Yeah, that's a chance for him to use his physicality there when he gets that ball up in that area and just drive over the top of that. When the ball's down lower and he's forced to balance himself a little bit more, it's a little bit more difficult for him to commit to that. But when he's upright, he can just really maximize his strength.
It's a little breezier than you might think out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, with a stadium court, you never really know how to get a good read until you're probably maybe 3-4 games in and you've been on both sides for a return and for a service game. Because oftentimes you look at the trees or you look at the flags and you see it blowing a certain way, but with stadiums, oftentimes it's swirling and you get a false read. Oh, great serve by Stefan Olsson. Out wide, right on the tees.
He's got a nice kick serve.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he's got pretty much everything. He goes flat or kick, but when you place it like that, yeah, it's always going to do well for you. There's the slice, and here's him coming in behind. Fernandez able to find the corner. Not really a big target there with that shot. I think Stefan would do that again, come in behind that shot and force Fernandez to try to find a little spot on the court like that. But when you're world number one, you tend to find those locations, don't you?
That's right.
Something our viewers will notice about Gustavo Fernandez return a serve, and talk a little bit about this as we get some other examples. Certainly in our next match, when we see Shingo Kunita return serve, for example, you're going to see Fernandez stay back behind that baseline and take full cuts. Almost like ground strokes, really, not as much of a pure return of serve as we normally think about. But as you can see, when he unleashes that big full swing, he can do some damage early. And as mentioned, when we look at Shingo in our next upcoming match, you'll see a completely different approach on return of serve. We'll point that out when we cover that match as well. But he'll be taking the ball early, well inside the baseline, and it's just fun to see these two top players do things differently, but each one of them incredibly effective. As we come to our first break here with Olsson 2-1 up in our opening match. Day number 1 of the NEC Singles Masters. I'm Paul Walker with Mark Gelina, and we're just excited to be here with you on this beautiful Florida day here in Central Florida. Players have come from all over the world to participate in this year-end event, and it is going to be a good one. Everybody's just kind of looking forward to getting their first matches under their belts. Have our next match that we won't be covering, but we'll be starting right behind us, Mark. As you can see, that little white tent in the middle of your screen right there, that's where Mark and I are broadcasting from. But right behind us on court number 1, we'll have a match starting at 10 o'clock. But we'll stay here, of course, on center court for all of our coverage. And we have 3 matches that we're going to be covering throughout the day. So stay with us. Got a good long day of great wheelchair tennis ahead of us. And there was an example of Olsson getting well inside the baseline on that return to serve. And that's a different approach, as I mentioned, between him and Fernandez. Stefan looking to take that ball early and get on the attack. But missing with the short angle, and Fernandez off to a little bit better start in this service game. Finding his range. There's a big first serve. No answer from Olsson, and so right just like that, looks like Fernandez has kind of settled in a little bit, got his break, now looking to get it to 2-all with a hold.
I'd love to watch him get that momentum going forward on that return.
Yeah, pretty critical to have some good momentum. The chair responds so much better once you really have created that momentum, just one little touch on the wheel, and that'll turn your chair left or right depending on where the serve is going. And you just don't have a lot of time, so if you're coming from more of a dead stop or not as much momentum, the chair is just not as responsive. So it's critical for them to get up some pretty big speed, although, as I mentioned, Fernandez does not use that same approach for the most part. His quick adjustments late on the return of serve and then full stroke are unique to him. But we'll see the majority of the players get a pretty good rolling start on their returns. Yeah, great wide second serve there, extending Olsen on the return. No answer as he tries to go down the line, catches the tape.
You know, it's similar to Rafa and Federer. I mean, Rafa stays back and takes a good rip at it, and Federer likes to get right up on the baseline and shorten up and catch it early, and just different styles.
Absolutely, yeah, right. That's a great point. You know, Djokovic as well in that mix there with being more of an aggressive upfront returner, and yeah, these guys nowadays. Medvedev at the U.S. Open this year, they talked about his return to serve locations, but certainly Rafa is no stranger to being. My goodness, I'm amazed sometimes how far back he is on his returns. Back in these shadowy areas that we're looking at right here is not uncommon for him. And then, yeah, just full strokes. And it's Fernandez, 40-15, with a chance to get this thing to 2-all. A couple of points here. Unless the score hasn't updated on our monitor, but looks like he's going.
Must be 40-30.
40-30, yep. There we go, if you're looking at it. Last time I checked, the 40-15 points are on the deuce side, right? still tennis. And it was indeed 40-15, and here we are at 2-all. So things all knotted, 2 games apiece in our opening match here on center court. And it'll be Stefan Olsen who came out with a 2-love lead, but now Fernandez settling down. And we are 2 games all. And I think these guys will both agree that the match is now starting.
Just like a book, beginning, middle, end.
Yeah.
Just a beginning.
Yeah, these guys have played so many matches over the course of their careers. They just kind of got to go through the motions and see how things unfold. That's a ball Gustavo would like to have back there. Pretty simple forehand in the middle of the court. Typically kind of plays that inside out to the backhand side. Just rolled it a little bit. Put it in the net. He'd like to have that one back. Olsen, right? Hey, textbook.
Inside out. How do you like that? Hit out away from yourself.
Yeah. Big serve up the tee. Extends Fernandez. Great job. Look at that chair skills there to get the shot he wants.
Beautiful.
Young players that maybe are watching or are learning to play the game, that is a critical piece. Is don't settle for something in the middle of the court. You saw Stefan work hard there to get that forehand to finish. At 40 love, tried to go big on the first and second serve there. Has a couple of points to play with, so why not?
I think that toss got a little bit further behind him than he thought it was going to be.
Yeah, he tried to crank that one out a little bit, but let's see if he goes back to the tee serve that he just hit. Maybe try to double down.
No ball boys this year.
I think in the, it's tough, with the tournament starting on a Tuesday, I think it can be tough to get typically what would be our ball kids out of school. But I think the plan is to have them during the weekend and as we get into the finals next week. So it'll be an added addition for the players as we come down the stretch. And there's Olsen with the hold to go up 3-2. Bring us to our second changeover of the match. But a good start, pretty even from both of these players. Both having some signs of great shot making and still both struggling a little bit in a couple of areas, but good match.
Paul, last year, this was one of the first broadcasting assignments I had, and then I did the JTT and I did college matches. But I always tell people this was my favorite one. Maybe it was because I was working with you. I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense to me, certainly. Thank you, Mark. But it was a lot of fun having you last year, and it's great that you've got an opportunity to do a broad spectrum of tennis things. I think both you and I just love the sport of tennis, obviously. But there is something special about watching these players perform. They are the best in the world. So it's really an honor to have them here in Orlando, here at the National Campus. I'm so happy that we've chosen to host this event and bring it here to Orlando. And so, it's just a treat for us. And I think guys like you and I just love watching the sport of tennis. And then when you're watching the best in the world, it never gets old. 2 years in a row? Do they have it planned out for many more years? Yeah,
typically it's a contractual thing with the ITF, because this is an ITF run event, and so I don't know kind of where they're at in their contractual agreements, but all we know is we're going to take it this year and do the best we can to put on a great event. Great get by Olsen, but not quite enough, and there's a good example of Fernandez coming forward to finish. So we'll take this, again, we had the singles only last year. We got singles and doubles this year. And so don't know where they are, like I said, in their contractual obligations. But love to see it continue to come back. I don't think the players mind a trip to Florida, when typically around most of the world where these players are coming for, winter is starting to set in. This is kind of a nice treat. And again, I think they like the conjoined events, having it's kind of a one-stop shop. I get my singles, I get my doubles all in a week, and then I'm home and I'm resting, I'm recovering, and they need it because they've been on the tour since January. Most of these players, average probably anywhere from 15 to 22 tournaments a year. That's just a lot of time on the road, a lot of time away from home. The body just needs that downtime, and so I think that the fact that they can almost have, probably good 3, almost 4 weeks of some downtime and then begin that training run up to Australia is pretty critical for all of them. Here's Fernandez with a great and easy hold to probably get it to 3-all. It's not in the books yet, but he's off to a good start on this service game. And just like Olsen on the 40 love, he goes for a little bit extra. Figures he's got a couple to play with, so why not? So Mark, you're a Central Florida resident. You work over at the University of Central Florida, involved with the, what is that, PTM, I believe,
PTM,
right?
Professional Tennis Management.
Yeah.
And this year in my introduction to PTM class, I had a module of wheelchair tennis. I had Jason Harnett come out.
Jason Harnett, national manager and head coach for USA.
And I'm going to have my whole class out here on Friday.
Awesome.
Of course, I'll give them 10 bonus points, so I'm sure they'll all be here.
Yeah. Dangle those little point carrots in front of them. Nice kick serve by Fernandez. Yeah, great execution by both of those guys. You saw Fernandez go with a nice deep volley there, try to tie Olsen up, keep the ball in the middle, but Olsen calmly executes the lob over the backhand side. No answer for Fernandez.
Smart shot. Yep. Very smart shot.
Here we go. You see the attack coming here. Follows it in. There's that volley into the body, but Olsen with some great share skills calmly just executes the lob. Beautifully done. Still 40-30, and there's the hold for Fernandez with the
great
first serve. Yep. So how many students do you have currently in your class?
Right now we have about 15.
Okay.
And next semester I'll have 2 classes. I'll have the intro class and I'll have essentials to PTM. And it's growing. It's taken off. And the beauty is they can come out here, and we use this as a laboratory to train the kids when they do their internships. They can work with some of the top mentors we have here at the campus.
Yeah, what an awesome partnership University of Central Florida and has with the National Campus here. Of course, the University of Central Florida tennis teams play here on campus over at the Collegiate Center, which is a part of this big, beautiful campus. We'll probably get an aerial shot of that at some point throughout our coverage. And we'll point that out, but right now we'll stay here on center court with Stefan